Welcome to toschestationdestiny, a channel for homebrew, fan-created Star Wars Destiny content. In this first series, I'll be talking about a complete homebrewed set of cards I created called Backup Plans. If you're interested in more details, you can find information about the processes that went into creating the set in my in-depth discussion video, which is linked in the description below. Thanks for checking out the channel, and let's get into the video. Today's video is going to cover the gray hero cards in this set, as well as a few neutral cards that support them. And there's more focus on gray in this set than there is in real sets, and there's two reasons for that. First is that I just came up with some concepts that seem to best fit in gray more than any other color, and I'll talk a little bit about that when I talk about them specifically. And two is that I kind of like the idea of giving gray some support. I know making gray too powerful is bad because he can just be thrown into any deck and makes any deck too good, but I like the idea of gray supporting itself since it doesn't actually get any help from the other colors in terms of bringing to the table. Specifically, Gray Hero contains what I call two sub-themes, which are groups of cards that were created together and support each other thematically and mechanically. In the Hero set, there are two of them, and the first one is EWOKS. I like EWOKS. I know a lot of people, they're very divisive within the community, but I like them. I saw Return of the Jedi when I was a kid, and it's still my favorite Star Wars movie. So you can say what you will about that, not because of the EWOKS, but I certainly don't mind them. And the EWOKS are one of the themes that made me emphasize more on gray. I think there's an argument to be made that EWOKS could go in almost any of the three colors. Obviously, the designers of the actual game decided that EWOKS should be yellow, which I think is a reasonable choice, but because they're sort of outsiders to the whole galactic conflict and kind of fit that sort of outer rim designation that yellow sort of has. But I think there's an argument to be made that they could be red as well, since they're sort of soldiers fighting with the rebellion against the Empire. And although I would say their connection to blue is the weakest, they are much more in tune with nature in a sort of Force-centric way that kind of works for blue as well. So either way, I could say that there's a distinction between yellow and red. As Gungans were red, I find them very similar to Gungans. So because I couldn't decide, I decided to stick them in gray, and this is where the whole idea of gray supporting itself came from. So this is the set of cards that supports EWOKS, the characters, and all of their support cards. So first we have Wicket. Wicket is one of the first cards that I ever designed. My cat's name is Wicket, so I'm a fan, obviously. And Wicket is kind of the cornerstone of the EWOKS set in general. He's obviously a character. He's gray. He's a character Ewok. He is 6/9 points cost, and that's important to remember because all of the EWOKS kind of work in that 3/6/9 range to kind of maximize the number of combinations you can have of Ewok characters. He's got 1 indirect, 2 melee for a resource, and a special. And the special is resolve any number of your gray dice in the order of your choice, increasing each of their values by 1 if you control the battlefield. That's another theme you'll notice with the EWOKS here, is that they either require you to or are enhanced if you control the battlefield. So that's something to keep an eye on in future EWOK cards as well. He is obviously unique and has 6 health. That's another common thing as well. The EWOKS are low cost, low health, which kind of makes sense for what you'd expect from the EWOKS. Next we have Logray. He is also a character Ewok. He's a gray character as well. Notice that Ewok is a subtype that's going to come up in a few of the referenced supporting cards. He's got 2 1 melee sides, and then a +2 melee, and then a 1 resource. So he's very much focused on doing damage. He's also 6/9 cost. Again, same as Wicket with 6 health. He has a power action, which says spend 1 resource or spot 2 gray characters to take control of the battlefield. So he can help you in getting control of the battlefield if you need it for something, or if you want to enhance Wicket's special, for example. And you'll note that like a lot of these cards, they work better and support each other, with the whole gray supporting each other. But in the event that you don't have EWOKS or EWOKS die and you just have low gray, you can always spend a resource to take control of the battlefield as well. For our third and final Ewok character, we have the non-unique character, which is just Ewok Warrior, which I believe is humorously the exact same name that the actual designers of the game came up with, but just believe me when I say that I created this well before those cards were spoiled. He is also a character Ewok. He's a 6 cost non-unique with 6 health again. He has a 1 melee, a 2 indirect for a resource. Note that's the inverse of Wicked's Die, who has a 1 indirect and a 2 melee for a resource. He has a 1 shield and 1 resource. And his action, once again, helps you take control of the battlefield. It lets you remove his die to take control of it and then take an additional action. So if you need the battlefield for something and you have an Ewok Warrior die in the pool, say showing a blank, since they have all of the Ewoks have 2 blanks, you can use those dice to help you take control of the battlefield. Rounding out the character points cards in the Ewok subtheme is Tribal Bond, which is a plot. It's a 3 cost plot, so looking at the Ewok characters, you could take one of either Wicked or Logray from Elite to non-Elite and add this plot, or there's a various other number of combinations that you could get in 3 points. But it says, before one of your characters is defeated, you may exhaust this plot to move any number of upgrades from it to another one of your characters of the same color or subtype. So obviously it's designed to work with the Ewoks so that when one of them dies, you can immediately redeploy all of their upgrades. But if you don't have Ewoks, you can also use it with any kind of monocolor deck. If you have 3 points to spare, not sure that that's worth it, but Built to Last does give all of your unique upgrades redeploy. Obviously it also has the resource benefit, but it costs 4, so maybe it's not the worst plot for 3 cost. But again, it is designed to support the Ewoks to make sure that all of the Ewok upgrades, since they do have such low health, are going to be able to redeploy from character to character. And finally, for the last card that doesn't go into a deck, we have the battlefield that supports the Ewoks as well, which is Forest Floor of Endor. Which says, while you control this battlefield, the cost of the first gray card you play is reduced by 1. So since the Ewoks have a lot of blanks and they don't have a ton of resource sides, this is definitely going to help your economy if you're playing a primarily gray deck. There may be some usefulness in this. I haven't looked at all of the implications if maybe there are some high-cost gray cards which are played in another sort of deck, but basically it's designed to help support the Ewoks and get their stuff out as quickly as possible. And note, of course, that the Ewoks have a lot of ways to take control of the battlefield, so even if you're getting outclaimed because you've got a 4-wide, 4-character deck, you can still get control of this and take a benefit of the battlefield even if you are not the one to claim it on the previous round. So now we're going to get into some of the cards that go in a deck that support an Ewok deck. And the first one we have is a support, which is the Ewok Catapult. It is a support artillery. It costs 4. Again, helping Forest Floor will help you get this card out there. It's got a 2 ranged, a 3 ranged, a 3 ranged for a resource, and a 4 indirect for a resource, a 2 disrupt, and then a blank. As I said, it's a support artillery. Like many of the Ewok cards, it requires you to control the battlefield. And it says, after you activate the support, you may turn an opponent's character or support die to any side. It's got some nice flavor text there about Ewok weapons taking out the lightly armored stormtroopers. Remember, of course, that Wicket allows, with his special, to increase all of your gray dice by 1, so you can almost think of this as a 3, 4, 4, 5 indirect, which is pretty nuts for 4. So obviously this is a pretty powerful card in an Ewok deck, but it does cost 4, and it's not exactly easy to get all of the resources together when you're playing Ewoks. The next Ewok support card is also a support. It's the Ewok Logram, and it's a 3 cost support. It has a 2 melee, a 3 melee for a resource, a 2 focus, $1 and 2 blanks, like a lot of the Ewok dice in the set. Again, it requires you to control the battlefield to play, and you can use its power action, which is spend 2 resources to return a support and any attached mods to its owner's hand. So this is absolutely devastating against something like a Shadowcaster, where for 2 you can just bounce it back to hand, and they lose, well, they do get all of the mods back in their hand as well. but still, that's a lot of resource investment that you've just wiped out for 2. So it's pretty great for that purpose. Again, Wicket can increase that to a 3, 4 for 1, and a 3 focus, which is pretty crazy as well for 3, but it does have 2 blanks. So you're not always going to hit those damage sides. Here we have our first upgrade, and it is the Ewok Spear, which is obviously an upgrade weapon. It's 2 cost. It has a 1 melee, a +2 melee, and a +2 melee, a 1 shield, and a resource. And it has the text, while this upgrade is attached to an Ewok, you may resolve indirect damage sides on your gray dice as if they were showing melee damage. So that actually helps out a lot of the other dice in the Ewok set, which have a lot of indirect damage. So you can be more likely to connect that +2 melee to one of those indirect sides, and also makes your indirect sides a lot more powerful. And note that it works in any deck. It doesn't have to be attached to an Ewok, but it also doesn't have to be in a deck with a lot of gray dice. But its effect is again increased by the more gray dice and gray cards you have. Again, that theme of gray supporting gray. The next upgrade we have is the Hang Glider. It's an upgrade equipment, also 2 cost. It has a +2 indirect, a 1 focus, a 2 focus, a 1 disrupt, and a resource. And it says, after you activate attached character, you may reroll any number of dice that are showing the same symbol, yours and or an opponent's. So you could use this as soft mitigation to reroll all of an opponent's dice showing damage. You could use it as a little bit of soft focus to reroll all of your blanks. You could use it as a little bit of both to reroll a side that you don't like and a side that you don't like on your opponent's die. It's got a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can use it for a little bit of rerolls after you activate the character. The next support card we have is another support. It's a 3-cost unique support called Local Resistance, which is depicts some Ewoks raining down rocks on stormtroopers. It basically represents sort of the local uprising that takes place whenever you're fighting on some place. It is a support. It gives all of your non-unique characters +2 health, and it is unique, so that is the maximum. You can't get +4 out of it. And it says, after one of your non-unique character dice deals damage to an opponent, you may exhaust this support to give a character 1 shield. So again, sort of emphasizing the protection that these non-unique characters give to your characters. Here we have our first event. It's a 0-cost event called Part of the Tribe, and it says, spot an Ewok to heal 2 damage from a unique character. So basically it's sort of representing the Ewoks taking in the strangers into their tribe and letting them rest and heal up. Now this is any unique character, so it can be used in a deck where, as depicted, you've got, say, Leia and some Ewoks, and it could be used to heal Leia, but it could also be used to heal Wicket and Logray in Ewok-only decks. The next event we have is called Wild Goose Chase. It's a 1-cost event, and it says exhaust one of your gray characters to exhaust an opponent's non-unique character. So it sort of symbolizes the Ewoks grabbing the speeder bikes and leading away some stormtroopers who are potentially could contribute to the battle otherwise. The next event we have is the Ewok-centric removal event, which is a 0-cost event called Will of the Forest. And it says spot 3 Ewoks to remove a die. So it's pretty much only going to be useful in a Ewok deck, but it is a 0-cost removal for any die, which is pretty rare. And then it says you can spend 1 resource to place this card on top of your deck instead of discarding it. So not only is it free removal, it's also recurring free removal. But it does have the hefty cost of requiring 3 Ewoks to work. So as soon as one of those 3 Ewoks goes down, or if you have 4 Ewoks, 2 Ewoks go down, which isn't terribly difficult to do, given that they only have 6 health each, although potentially 8 with local resistance, then all of a sudden Will of the Forest becomes a dead card. So it is a great removal piece for early in the game, and it also recurs, which is very nice, but it is only a single die, and again, it has the hefty cost of requiring 3 Ewoks to work. It also serves as a little bit of anti-mill, since even if you don't have the EWOKs, you can still do the second piece and place it on top of your deck. So if you're playing against a deck that has hand discard but not discard from top of deck, maybe, not sure what that would be, but it can be helpful to prevent you from being milled as well. For our last EWOK hero card, there are a few neutral cards as well that support EWOKs, but our last EWOK hero card is another support. It's a one-cost support called Yubnub. And it says, after an opponent's character is defeated, you may exhaust this support to take control of the battlefield and ready a gray character. So basically it lets you use your EWOKs a second time if you see success in taking out some enemy forces. Now we have a couple of neutral cards which support the EWOK sub-theme, but they're not strictly hero, but I'm still going to talk about them here because they work so well with the EWOKs. First one is a one-cost upgrade called Rock Sling. It's an upgrade weapon. It's a one-cost weapon, so that's always a good thing to see. It's got a 1 melee, a 1 indirect, a +2 indirect, and 1 shield, and then 2 blanks, like so many of the EWOK dice do. And it says, after you resolve this die, you may deal 1 indirect damage to yourself to roll it back into your pool if attached character has another gray weapon. So symbolically, that's kind of like Wicked hitting himself in the face with the rock sling, and him having another rock to throw, sort of symbolized by the other gray weapon. So you probably noticed that all of the EWOK dice have a lot of blanks, including their supports. So the next card we have is a zero-cost neutral card, which again requires you to control the battlefield, and it has ambush, and it's called Battle Cry. It says, re-roll any number of your dice showing a blank. So if you roll out all of your EWOKs, say, and you are showing all blanks, you can then throw down this card, presuming you control the battlefield, although there are many ways to get the battlefield with EWOKs, and then re-roll any of those dice, and then take an additional action to potentially do a bunch of damage. And finally, the last card in the EWOK subtheme is a neutral event. It's a 2-cost event called Warhorn Call, and it has ambush, and it says reveal the top card of a deck, then activate any number of your characters and or supports that match the color of the revealed card. So this is useful in a lot of decks, but the caveat is that the characters and supports that you activate have to match the card that you draw from your deck. So this is obviously most useful in a monocolor deck because you're going to get to activate a large number of characters and supports, and also you're going to be likely to hit that color from your deck when you try and play this card. This is basically a squad tactics with ambush for EWOKs. So I think it's a nice way because you're going to have a lot of different characters and potentially a lot of supports to get everything into the pool quickly and potentially resolve that for a big swing of damage, which is why it costs 2. The second sub-theme I want to talk about in Grey Hero is sort of an expansion on mods and the way mods are done. As all the mods we've had so far are simply to modify vehicles. And so I thought it would be fun to sort of play around with mods and see what sort of other sorts of supports they could modify. And the first and most obvious one was droids. And so I thought the thing that best exemplified this was R2-D2. R2 is a wealth of gadgets and gizmos from every little drawer and door in his body, and so I thought he would be the perfect centerpiece for a droid mod suite. And so we have here R2 himself, which is he is a 1-cost support droid with no blanks, which is always nice. He's got 2 melee, a 1 focus, a 1 focus, a 1 resource, and 2 specials. And his text says first that he can have any number of mods attached, so that breaks the 3 rule for anything else in the game. And the special says search a deck for a mod, then attach it to the support if able. Otherwise, discard it. So what's interesting about that is that obviously it's meant to search your own deck and grab gadgets for R2 himself, but you can also be used to search another deck. If you're playing against a vehicle deck, you're able to search their deck for, say, a triple laser turret, and because it's not able to be attached to R2, you can discard it. So it's got a double focus in terms of being able to attach mods to himself, as well as delete or discard the mods from your opponent's deck. The first mod we have for R2 is the Electroprod. It is an upgrade mod. It's an equipment mod. It's a 1 cost. It has a 1 melee and a 2 melee for a resource, a 1 disrupt, 1 shield, and 2 blanks, and it's simply modified droid support. So it's kind of the most basic 1 cost thing, adds a little bit of damage to R2, and gives him just some more dice that he can roll. You'll notice this card is neutral. Even though we're talking about Gray Hero, it's obviously meant to work with R2. It can work in any deck that uses droids, so hero or villain. So I think there's a lot of potential here for slapping this on like a 000 or a BT and an Afra deck as well, as it obviously works with R2 in this deck as well. The next mod for R2 is also neutral and has some really awfully terrible low resolution art, but it is the Grabber Arm, which is a 0 cost mod, also equipment, which modifies a droid support, and it doesn't have a die, but its action is exhaust this upgrade to remove a weapon or equipment die, sort of symbolizing the ability of R2 to reach out and snatch away weapons and equipment from the enemy. Next we have the Scomplink, which is also a neutral upgrade mod, again equipment. It's a 0 cost without a die. It modifies a droid, and it has a power action which says look at an opponent's hand and discard a card from it that costs 0. So this can be pretty powerful in any kind of deck because it's great to be able to get into your opponent's hand and see what they have. Discarding 0 cost is great too. A lot of good 0 cost removal floating out there now, which can be immediately removed before they get a chance to play it. It's also symbolic of the R2's ability to sort of hack into a computer and get some insider knowledge on the enemy and maybe shut down some of their systems. And for the last droid mod we finally have a hero one, and it is a 1 cost upgrade mod, which is a weapon. It's called Hidden Weapon, and it is symbolic of the lightsaber that Luke hid inside R2 at Jabba's palace that at the right time sprung into action and allowed him to escape the clutches of Jabba the Hutt. It has a die. It has a 3+1 melee sides and a 1 resource side, and then again 2 blanks. It modifies a droid, and it has ambush and says after you play this upgrade, roll this die into your pool. So the idea is kind of like you have your character rolled out, and he's got some damage showing, and maybe you just need 1 more damage to sort of put it over the top. You've got this 1 cost, you throw it down on a droid, you roll it into your pool, you got a 50% chance of hitting the +1 damage, and it has ambush to allow you to then resolve that damage. So it's just kind of a nice little surprise damage from hand, in addition to being a consistent source of maybe a little bit of extra damage throughout the game. So that does it for mods, but there are a few other droid and R2 related cards that I thought I'd want to talk about in relation to this sub-theme. And the first one here is a 0 cost support. It's a support equipment called Power Cell, and it says action, exhaust this support to use the action or power action on one of your droids, even if already used this round. So there are several droids out there that have a good action or power action. It doesn't actually work with R2 because he doesn't have either of those, but there are plenty of good droids out there that would allow you to use those actions multiple times, and the Power Cell is just a nice way for you to use those actions again. The last card I want to talk about in the R2 sub-theme is a 0 cost hero upgrade called Trusty Sidekick. It says, after you play this upgrade, you may search your deck or discard pile for a droid and play it, reducing its cost by 1. So that lets you play it on a character and get R2 out for free, if you'd like, or another droid in another deck. And it says, when attached characters' dice are in your pool, your droid dice cannot be removed by opponents. So it's basically kind of like a triple laser turret for your droid dice, but it requires the attached characters' dice to be in the pool instead. Just a good way to protect your big powerful droids. Obviously R2, not necessarily the most powerful droid, but if there is another droid in your deck that had a big die and you wanted to make sure it wasn't removed by your opponents, this would be a good way to do that. So now there's just 3 more gray hero cards that didn't really fit into either the R2 or Ewok sub-themes that I want to go over, just for covering all of the gray hero cards in the set. The first one of these cards is a Porg. If you thought Ewoks weren't controversial among the fan base, I've got Porgs in here too. The Porg is a 1-cost support creature. Creature is a new subtype that I'm introducing in this set, which is going to apply across a couple of different colors and factions. But this is a 1-cost creature. It has a die which has a 1 focus, a 1 disrupt, 1 resource, a special for a resource, and 2 blanks. And the text says you can include up to 4 copies of this card in your deck, sort of symbolizing how Porgs are everywhere and spread like wildfire. After you activate this support, place 1 resource on it. Then the special says, place this support on the bottom of your deck to heal damage from a character equal to the number of resources on it. So the first turn, you could potentially get a heal for 1. The more times you activate it, the more healing power potential you can get. And the special sort of symbolizes your ability to cook and eat the Porg and get the health back from it. So you can flood with Porgs and potentially have a lot of healing online at all times. Of course, you still have to get to the special, and the special does cost a resource. So it's definitely not foolproof, but still a nice 1-cost creature to throw in if you need some healing in your deck. The next hero card we have is also a creature. It's a vehicle creature, which is sort of a strange thing, but it's the Tauntaun, which is a 2-cost support, which is a creature and a vehicle. It has a die which has 2 shield sides, 1 resource, 2 specials, and a blank. And it has a sort of a similar effect to the Porg in that it's designed for healing, where it says, the special says, discard this support from play to heal up to 2 damage from one of your characters. Then, if you control the battlefield, you may spend 1 resource to place it on top of your deck. So again, this symbolizes killing the Tauntaun, slicing it open, and living inside of it to heal some damage from your characters. And of course, if you are able to be found, then and you control the battlefield, you can recover your Tauntaun at another time. It's another healing card, but it also has the vehicle subtype, so can play off of any vehicle removal or something like that that you might need. And it also has two shield sides, so while it's alive, it can provide your characters with a little protection as well. Finally, the last card in the Gray Hero set is another mod. It is an upgrade mod for vehicles. It's an equipment mod, and it's kind of a fun one. It's a 1-cost mod called Tow Cable, and it obviously symbolizes the tow cables that the snowspeeders use to take down AT-ATs during the Battle of Hoth. It has a fairly mediocre die. It's got 1 indirect, 1 focus, 1 shield, and 3 blanks. But its action and power action are where it really has some interesting mechanics to it. The first is the action. The action says, reroll this die. If it's showing a blank, place 1 damage on the card. If it is not, resolve it, and then remove all damage from this card. So when you use the action, you're either going to get a blank and put a damage on it, or you're going to reroll it into an indirect, a shield, or a focus, and then immediately have to resolve those things, removing all damage from the card. Now the power action says, discard a vehicle in play with a cost less than or equal to the damage on this card. So you can, if you get lucky, build up damage on the card, and then use the power action to take out a big vehicle. But as soon as you miss, you have to start all over again, and you only get the 1 damage, the 1 focus, or the 1 shield. So it's a sort of a gambling card, similar to Watto's ability now, or maybe Chance Cube back in the day, which I think is a fun and interesting mechanic, and I've used it a similar effect on a couple of other cards throughout this set, but I just think it's a fun 1 more pass type thing as you slowly circle the AT-AT until finally you're able to take it down. So I thought that was a fun card. So here's a look at all the cards I talked about today. Here's the hero set, which includes all of the Ewok cards and all of the R2-D2 and droid mod cards, as well as the extra couple creatures and mods that I talked about. And in addition, we have the neutral cards that support these sub-themes. So here's a look at the neutral cards, and that will be it for Gray Hero. Thanks so much for checking out Toshi Station. Big shout outs, as always, to the Burger Tokens Star Wars Destiny card builder, which was used to create the bulk of these cards. Big shout out as well to all of the other Star Wars Destiny content creators in the community. Airbrook Gaming, Hyperloops, Chance Cube, Discard to Reroll, Knights of Ren. All these guys are great. Go check them all out. And again, thanks a lot. Bye.